5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome to the Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting for January the 25th, 25th of January 2023. Yay!
That went
Welcome,
fast,
everyone.
huh?
Right. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconferencing rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and committee meeting members while allowing the public participation. Accordingly, the public may observe committee meetings and or address the committee using remote public comment options or have the option to attend committee meetings in person. Please be advised that committee members may continue to participate in the meeting remotely. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. To address the committee in person at 50 Park Place, Brisbane, California, 94005, the community meeting room. Masks are no longer required, but are highly recommended in accordance with the California Department of Health guidelines. To maintain public health and safety, please do not attend in person if you are experiencing symptoms associated with COVID-19 or respiratory illness. Remote participation. Members of the public may observe/participate in the committee meeting by logging on into the Zoom webinar listed below. Committee meetings can be also viewed live and or on demand via the city's YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA, or on Comcast Channel 27. Archived videos can be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. Please be advised that if there are technological difficulties, the meeting will nevertheless continue. The agenda materials may be reviewed online at brisbaneca.org at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting and at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting. Remote public comments. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. Aside from commenting while in the Zoom meeting, the following email will also be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications or during an item. The email is at atherton@brisbaneca.org. Join the Zoom meeting at brisbaneca.org/OSEC-ZOOM. Meeting ID number 976-4295-0160. Call-in number is 669-900-9128. Special assistance. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Adrian Atherton at aatherton@brisbaneca.org or 415-508-2118. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. Right, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will commit the roll call. Michelle Salmons.
Here.
Mary Rogers. You're muted.
Sorry, here.
Erin Becker.
I'm here.
Glenn Feldman.
Here.
Barbara Ebel.
Here.
And Jason Noonan is absent tonight. Donna Kelmes here. We'd like to adopt the agenda.
Oh, we actually have a requested agenda change. First, before I say that, let me say this is my first time doing a hybrid meeting, so bear with me. And also, I can hear myself like an echo in the room. So if I am talking funny, that's probably why. We wanted to see if we could slightly rearrange the old and new business. We have Ingrid Padilla, City Clerk, with us to talk about the Brown Act. So we'd like to move that up, and then for sake of orderly agenda, do the other new business item and then move on to the old business, if that's agreeable.
I move that we accept those changes to the agenda.
I'll second.
We need to vote on that. All right. Shauna Calmes, yes. Michelle Salmons,
Aye.
Mary Rogers,
Yes.
Erin Becker,
I abstain.
Glenn Fieldman,
Yes.
Barbara Ebel.
Aye.
All right, it's accepted.
Okay, great.
Are there any announcements?
I have an announcement.
Michelle?
This Saturday from 10 a.m. till, I'm not sure what time in the afternoon, 2 p.m. The San Bruno Mountain Watch Mission Blue Nursery is having a plant sale. And we have lots of wonderful things to plant. And this is the perfect time of year to plant after the extensive amount of rains we've had. So please join us. It's at the Mission Blue Nursery, which is behind the Brisbane Firehouse off of Bayshore. Follow the road like you're going to machinery and equipment.
Thank you. Any other announcements? All right, oral communications, anything from the public?
I don't see any public present either in the room or in Zoom, and I have not received any communications.
Byron, I could use some help. No, you're in the middle of your game. Okay.
Barbara, you're not muted.
I'm sorry, I just knocked over a bowl of frozen shrimp.
And
I'm trying
with
not to
that-
let the dog eat them. I'll put myself mute.
Thank you. All right, how about we approve the minutes, the old minutes from last meeting? Are there any changes anybody wants to make or comments that they'd like to register?
I'll move to
Well,
approve.
Okay.
A second.
Right, Michelle Salmon,
Aye.
Mary Rogers,
Aye.
Erin Becker,
Aye.
Shauna Calmes, aye. Barbara Ebel, eating shrimp. Barbara,
Aye.
thank you.
And Glenn.
And Glenn, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Excellent. The minutes have been approved. Okay. So we will
Okay.
now review the new Brown Act provisions.
Oops.
Should we introduce? I'm sure everyone knows Ingrid Padilla, our city clerk, but she wanted to talk a little bit more about the memo that was sent out to everybody a couple of weeks ago regarding the changes to the Brown Act, as COVID remote meeting is starting to taper off. So take it away, Ingrid.
Thank you, committee members. I'm Ingrid Padilla, City Clerk. I wanted to share with you, as you know, like early this month, you received a memo from legal counsel Michael Rausch regarding how to conduct the conduct of meetings through February 28th, 2023, and thereafter, new Brown Act provisions allowing for remote meeting attendance. And in that memo, he mentioned that the governor has announced that he intends to lift the proclaimed COVID-19 statewide state of emergency effective February 28, 2023. So the city intends to return to primarily in-person meetings at that time. So the memo really addresses how meetings will be conducted through February 28th and thereafter, and provided information about new Brown Act provisions that under limited circumstances may permit a council, commission, or committee member to attend a meeting remotely. So meetings through February 28th will be conducted in a hybrid fashion. That is, the council, commission, and committee members and members of the public may attend meetings either remotely or in person. And that's why Adrian is at City Hall right now in the community meeting room, in case members of the public may also want to attend in person. So after the 28th, council, commission, and committee members will need to attend meetings in person, and members of the public may attend meetings either in person or remotely, so long as there is a city technology that will allow members of the public to observe and participate in the meeting in essentially the same fashion as if they were in person. So the city has acquired that technology. And so we've been testing it with city council meetings currently, and Adrian is there to also test the technology. So what I have for you today is kind of like a visual representation of what this memo looks like. I know some members have some questions, but as I know, this is our current understanding of how SB 2449 will be implemented. So it's what I'm going to be sharing with you is kind of like a living, breathing document. It'll change over time. And the legal team is actually planning to do kind of like all hands on deck with all the legislative bodies to have a workshop on SB 2449 in April. So perhaps their understanding will change through time, but I'm also here to kind of gather any questions you may have, and I'll bring it back to the legal team if I can't answer your questions this evening. Let's see if I can share this now. Can folks view this?
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay, so this is some supplemental information, a visual representation of SB 2449 and ways members of a legislative body may participate in meetings after the 28th. So this is our current understanding of the guidelines, okay? So these are ways members can participate. So first thing is a member can attend the meeting in person. Members will be, the way that this table reads is some notes for the members and some notes for the staff. So the meetings will be held in person at Brisbane City Hall, 50 Park Place. And as you know, that you'll need quorum for it to constitute a meeting under the Brown Act. Okay, the second is absent or no show. So that's also okay, but you have to check with your bylaws about your attendance policy. And of course, we don't like to promote absenteeism in our committees and commissions and of course, city council. And then this is where SB 2449 kind of provides more options. So the third option, let me see if I can get it all on one screen, is that the member can attend the meeting virtually under the just cause provisions. So the provisions for that will be for childcare or caregiving of a child, parent, grandchild, grandparent, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner, a contagious illness, a need related to physical or mental disability, or travel on business of the local agency. So travel on business for your particular legislative body. So with this provision, the member must notify the legislative body at the earliest opportunity and provide a general description of one or more of the circumstances above. So email notice is sufficient if sent to the chair and the city clerk or the staff lead, and the member provides a general description of one or more of the circumstances above. So this one is basically like a notification, and it's limited to 2 per year. Now, this is a limit to 2 per year per legislative body. So for example, if you have a subcommittee, you're able to use the just cause provision twice that year, or that, I don't know how many subcommittees you have. So you have subcommittee A, you belong to 3 subcommittees, A, B, and C, and you're allowed 2 per year for each legislative body, and 2 for, the OSEC committee. In terms of staff, you have to make sure that there must be an in-person quorum. But for subcommittees, you may have one in person and 1 remote. You could receive email notice from members. You could receive the email notice from members that provides the general description of 1 or more of the circumstances under the notes for members, and all votes must be conducted by roll call. Okay, so
You want questions at the end, Ingrid?
yeah, let's have questions at the end, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the next is a member attending the meeting virtually, remotely, using the emergency provisions. So with this case, there's no limit, but there must be a true emergency, such as a physical or family medical emergency, that prevents a member from attending a meeting in person. So this is an email request situation. So it's not just a notification, it's a request to the chair, city clerk, or staff lead, and provide a general description of the emergency. The legislative body itself must consider the request at the earliest possible time and must approve the request if the member is to be allowed to participate remotely. So with that, in terms of staff, there's also, I need to have an in-person quorum. But subcommittees may have 1 person, one in person and 1 remote. On the agenda, there must be like a standing item for us to kind of really comply to this. We'll need a consent calendar item so that the legislative body has the opportunity to consider and then act on the request. So under consent, maybe, emergency provision request, and then just have that be a standing item. And then you're supposed to receive the email request that has the general description of the emergency, and all votes must be conducted by roll call. Lastly, this is a provision or a way that we use teleconferencing pre-Zoom and pre-COVID. And this is also through the Brown Act. And it allows a member to attend the meeting by teleconferencing, meaning the good old audio. So this means only audio, which means you could call into the Zoom only audio and no video. So I know that doesn't make any sense, but because the Brown Act, because we're using like old Brown Act provisions, or we're reverting back to the old Brown Act provisions, you could definitely use this as another option to attend the meeting via phone. The Brown Act allows the member to attend a meeting by teleconference if the member complies with a certain statutory requirements, that the teleconference location is accessible to the public and the location is noted on the agenda. For example, the address of a hotel where the member is staying or the member's home address. The location must be accessible by the public. And then you have to contact the city clerk for requirements, because we also have to provide, like a notice for you to post at the location where you're holding the meeting. There must be an in-person quorum, but subcommittees may have one in person and 1 remote person. Host location where the member will be on the agenda. And for the staff, all votes must be conducted by roll call. So a lot of people have posed a question if these same procedures for attending, are these the same procedures for attending subcommittee meetings? And the answer is yes, because the requirement of the Brown Act applies to legislative bodies of local government. And the term legislative body is defined to include the governing body of a local agency and any commission, committee, board, or other body of the local agency, whether permanent or temporary, decision-making or advisory, that is created by formal action of a legislative body. So that means that this includes standing subcommittee meetings, but not the ad hoc subcommittee, not the ad hoc subcommittee meetings. Second, what happens if there are technical difficulties during the meeting? So, you know, after the conversation with our legal team, they said that as long as there's interactive audio is maintained, so if there's interactive audio, people can call in. Even when the live stream and or cable channel is down, the meeting may continue and the legislative body may vote on an item. However, if there's no way to have interactive video audio, for example, the Zoom is no longer working, the legislative body may not vote on an item. However, the members of the legislative body may continue discussing the item and asking questions, but they're not required to. So you can't vote on an action, but you can continue discussing and asking questions if the Zoom is down. So lastly, let's say the Zoom went down, then it went back up. So if interactive video and audio becomes active, the legislative body must allow more public comment on that item before taking action on the item. So that provides opportunities for the public to finally have that engagement and interaction on that item. So for now, should I stop sharing, or do folks want to ask me questions?
You might want to keep sharing while the questions come up in case somebody wants to review a section.
Sounds good.
I think Barbara was first.
Hi, so I think it was the first page of directions you gave us. It said that we could attend remotely if traveling for the agency.
Mhm.
And
It's
that was a little
under, Just
confusing to
Cause.
me.
Yeah. Travel for the city of Brisbane or your,
Okay.
See an example, like you went to that climate action forum in San Luis Obispo, for example, and say there was a meeting in the evening.
or conferences. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so, but like, I love Erin, and but she has to travel for work a lot, so she would not be able to attend remotely if she was out of town on a job function.
Correct. Under
Okay.
the Just Cause provision, but she has the other
She can do
options,
it by
such as
audio, right?
teleconferencing.
So she can teleconference audio, but she can't have video if she's on if somebody's like away on a work thing. That seems
Exactly.
a little odd.
Yeah, it's
Ridiculous.
definitely old school Brown Act provisions.
Okay.
But it's what is available to us at this time.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I actually understood that weird little wrinkle.
You
Thank
know,
you. That
so
was
many
it.
like light bulbs after I had the meeting with the legal counsel, so many light bulbs went off. Like, thanks for all the clarifying notes here. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, it was.
I believe Glenn was next.
My question was pretty much the same as Barbara, and you've answered it, Ingrid, but a comment. Our democracy is really in trouble, and these provisions apply to committees of volunteers who are donating their time are just extremely onerous and are likely to discourage people, especially if they do have to travel, from participating in commissions and committees. And I just find that outrageous. And I'm upset about it. So I just wanted to register that. I know there's nothing you can do about it, but and I don't know where feedback would even go if we could have an opportunity for feedback, but this is just really very onerous for people who are not employees, who are volunteers, who are trying to do something for their community. And, you know, it doesn't really apply to me. I'm happy we're back to going in person, but I'm kind of privileged in that I don't have to travel for work. It's bad. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Well said. If there are any opportunities for advocacy, I'll let our committee members and legislative bodies know for sure.
Erin?
So I've got a couple questions, and Ingrid, you just answered one. My first question was gonna follow on to Glenn and say, where should our feedback go? So if you have any idea other than, just writing to our senators about how this impacts our ability to work for the community and the tax base and the voters, which is what they care about, that would be great. So
For sure.
I had already sent an email to Adrian about this. I'm not sure if you read it.
Yes.
But one of
I
my
have.
questions was, what is the difference between SB 2449 and the traditional provisions? Is it solely that line on teleconferencing?
It's just, yeah, the SB 2449 is just about the just cause provision and the emergency provisions.
Okay.
And they also have like notes about other ways of participating, like the technology, when, technology available and how the public can engage.
Perfect. Okay. So my next question, and it's not my first anymore. It was for the emergency provision, my little bit of feedback to go to counsel and legal
Mhm.
would be, since we're agendizing someone's request for an emergency consideration, there's some really big privacy issues there, right? And if we're having a public meeting that's recorded and someone's saying some sensitive medical stuff, I feel like there's a real potential issue there. And so I think it would be best for legal to consider that in advance. It might require some privacy training to the committees.
Okay, that's a great idea. You're right. They do not want you to, note any medical conditions or any medical private medical history, but it could be also very vague. But I'll
Right.
have to add that to the training.
Yeah, that's a sensitive one. And especially because I think those requests go to the whole committee. And so if you weren't someone who worked with the government and had to think about privacy or protecting other people's privacy all the time, you might not think about saying, oh, this person's having this really invasive, horrible procedure on there.
Yeah, I'll add that to the table as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then could you scroll down a little bit to the audio only teleconference Zoom conditions?
Mhm.
I did some internet work on this earlier and I didn't see that subcommittees. Oh, okay. So I had missed all the rules about subcommittees having one in-person and one remote person. I had read committee when you went through that the first time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think what it's saying is that at least, because I don't know how many committee members do you have per subcommittee? 3?
Usually 3.
3. So I think
Generally, we might have 1 or 2 subcommittees that only have 2 attendees, though.
I see. I'll make a note for the ones that have 3. I think what it's just saying is it doesn't necessarily have to be, I guess, the majority
In-person quorum.
in person. Yeah.
Okay, so that
But
was
I'll clarify that just to make sure for our city council subcommittees, there's usually only 2. So I'll just clarify with them with 3.
It doesn't sound like a majority, but maybe at 50% have to be in person, at least
Yeah.
50%.
And then for the committee, it still has to be a quorum in person.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And that does not have a cap on it. It's real unfortunate. I know everyone kind of understands my situation, but basically in addition to the amount of work travel I did before, for the next 6 weeks or 6 months, I'm going to be traveling twice as much. So I have a feeling I'm going to miss a lot of subcommittee meetings and some of the OSEC meetings, which is a real bummer. And I thought I would be kicked off of OSEC by the summer if this actually goes down this way. So I'm a little stressed out because I like my role on OSEC and I would like to continue working for this body in the city, but these rules change things a lot. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to continue. But I'm going to stick around as long as our bylaws allow and join as much as possible.
And I just wanted to note, so it's basically 2 for the just cause per legislative body. So those are, you know, like I said, if you have 3 different subcommittees, you're allowed 2 for each of those committees.
And I know there are other people who also need to attend remotely sometimes. So I would hate to have my work travel, impact, have to make that trade. If for some reason you
just froze, Erin.
No, I froze because my question was, could you join a meeting as a member of the public and participate as a public member and not as a voting member? But I think because of this teleconferencing thing, there's no reason to do that.
Right.
So I think that question is moot. And I think that's all I have. Ingrid, I appreciate your taking your time to join us today and and go through this, and I will yield now. Thank you.
Michelle is next.
Yeah, one question was answered, which was about the subcommittee quorum, because there's you can have up to 3 on a subcommittee, so 2 would have to be in person. And Erin, if you weren't there, I would make every effort to be in person so that you could be remote, because I consider your contribution extremely valuable. And then could you repeat how many times you can use the teleconferencing emergency? So 2 per subcommittee, that's 2 times for each committee member?
For the just only for the just cause provision.
Oh, just cause.
Because that one
Okay.
you just have to notify people. You don't need to have
Okay. And
approval.
then the other ones that doesn't have a limit on the amount of times, right?
Emergency and teleconference rules. As I know, there's no limit.
Okay. And then for the actual whole group, it's 1 time or 2 times?
For the actual group, just for the just cause, twice.
Twice per committee member.
But just for the just cause one, not for the emergency or the teleconference.
That's correct.
Got it. And
I'm
then
gonna stop my video. My video, does it look like it's shaking to you? My video? Okay.
No.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So then my other question was, if we're having a meeting, a full meeting, or even a subcommittee meeting, and the Zoom goes down, but there is a quorum, can't we continue the meeting?
You could continue the meeting as long as, well, if the Zoom is down, I'll pull it back down here. Because there's not an opportunity for the public to interact with audio. You cannot vote on the item, but you can discuss the item and ask questions of staff and things like that. But you cannot vote on that item until the technology comes back up.
Even though the public could attend in person.
That's right. It's the issue of an interactive audio portion.
Okay, and that's something completely new, right?
This is SB 2449, correct?
Okay. Okay, I just wanted clarity on that. Thanks so much. And thank you, Ingrid. I can't even begin
Thank
to
you.
tell
There's
you
so
how
many
much.
growing pains around this, so thank you for your patience and
Thank you for your patience.
Maybe Mary is next.
Just one comment, and I think Glenn alluded to it. I mean, all of us are volunteers, and Zoom has provided flexibility to have meetings midday or during our lunch hour. And I mean, I don't see that happening anymore. I think we're all going to be stuck with evening meetings, which is not great. But I think they really need to relook at these rules and adjust them. So, I mean, it takes away a lot of flexibility and participation. I think we're going to lose a lot of either things aren't going to get done, or they're going to keep getting pushed out because we won't have a quorum or we won't be able to meet. And so, do you want it done? Or, because that's what's going to happen. Things are going to slow down. It's going to slow down process. Anyway, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mike a first question? I'm just curious about the subcommittee meetings because In the past, those haven't been public. I mean, sometimes we're meeting on site. So how does this change things? How could anybody comment on, when we're meeting out at the frog habitat, or, 2 or 3 of us standing by the water there? How does, I don't understand what happens then.
I think those were all public meetings. Maybe people just didn't decide to attend. But I know that, when you have off-site meetings, those are just agendized accordingly, and the location. Oh, so you're saying like in terms of the audio and video participation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yes,
I'll bring that back to legal team.
these have been, that's a good point, but I think some of them have been ad hoc subcommittees. So these rules don't apply to ad hoc subcommittees that are
Right.
for a particular project and are going to come to an end. But that is true. We did have the hike on San Bruno Mountain
That's
and,
right.
the habitat areas. And I guess
That's right.
that's going to be gone.
Well, that would be, I would find that terribly onerous, because that actually is interesting and I think very germane to what we're doing here. And without the actually getting out and looking at the sites, then this is a waste of time. You got to do some on-hand, on-site
important.
stuff. That's very important. Sitting in a room is
Oh,
not that important.
Lawmakers don't think of everything, and the kind of the workaround is if it's an ad hoc subcommittee, you don't have to agendize it and you can do things a little more informally. So something to keep in mind, I guess.
I'll take that back to the legal team. That's a good point.
I mean,
Complete Streets, I'm assuming also have.
I guess one option that comes to mind is just staff could have Zoom on their phone and the public would still be able to dial in as long as you have self-service.
As long as you don't drop it in
To
the
work, but that might be
habitats.
dicey hiking around the acres.
It could be interesting.
like a GoPro. No, GoPros don't have Zoom.
I'm not sure who was next, Glenn or Barbara. Go ahead.
And I just have one more question about the emergency meeting provision, or the emergency, whatever you say that?
Provision, yeah.
The emergency provision. I mean, it just seems that they must consider the request. It's, as Erin pointed out, this is going to go before the public and the privacy concerns about that. I'm also just kind of concerned about timing. Like if it's truly an emergency, that generally that kind of by definition usually means you don't have a lot of notice. And as we only meet once a month, how's that gonna work?
It'll just be a standing item on your, kind of like roll call or something like that. And then as a group, you'll have to approve or deny the request of the member.
Okay. All right. So
And I guess it could be made the day of also. I mean, but because it's going to be an emergency situation. So that's why it'll just be a standing item with no report attached to it. It'll just be, an oral report or something.
I'm gonna jump in and say that perhaps the request that we just had for this meeting would constitute that. It's, even though it's an emergency, things are scheduled emergencies, right? So it seems like if someone's already used their 2 just cause exceptions, the emergency one would still apply for a physical or family medical emergency.
That's right.
Glenn?
Since we're on this one, Ingrid, from a staff perspective, maybe ask to or look at clarifying who the email request is made to, because let's say the chair isn't checking their email, it should definitely go to a city staff person. And is it better that it's the committee staff person than the city clerk, or do you want to see all of them for all the committees, or should it be all 3, all of the above?
I check my email as the chair.
I'd be out on a job site or something and
Sure.
coming straight, things could happen.
I think that's why we have all three. I think I could change that to instead of or, should I do and?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just
Probably.
make sure everyone's
That's
involved in case that gets missed. And there's like
Right.
folders and there's everything that could go wrong. So I think the
Right,
more
a little redundancy. And in
Okay.
each case.
Yeah.
That you're emailing request.
that's right.
Thank you.
Glenn?
So I'm just wondering if somebody does know that they're going to need to be gone in advance, is that going to be public information? I mean, I can imagine people not wanting to have the general public know that they're going to be out of town on X day, especially if they live by themselves and there's nobody else that's going to be home. That concerns me a little bit.
And are you talking about, I'm sorry, in the emergency provision or just in any? I think what you're able to do is just share what you're comfortable sharing within that
Yep.
email.
Ingrid, I
Are you-
was
are you-
thinking with regard to
Right.
the teleconference option where you know in advance that you'll be traveling and you need to notice the location.
Right.
Yeah, that's also in these times is also another concern for members, but unfortunately that's the only criteria that we could work with around teleconferencing. You do have to notice the location of where, because people could potentially join you in that location. That's the idea behind the Brown Act provision. And like, as you know, it's very antiquated. But like I said, that's like one of the only provision that we could use at this time.
Well, that's pretty ridiculous that people are expected to subject themselves to personal risk in order to attend a meeting of a citizens committee. This is just absurd. And the more we talk about it, the more ridiculous it gets.
Yeah, and I think there was a couple of times when city council members, pre-COVID, we used this when a council member was at their other vacation home or something, and so we had to notice. Instead of that person noticing in their home, he was able to get like another meeting place, so we were able to use that address for like the local city hall of that city, for example. So yeah, it's pretty antiquated.
So I had my hand up next. Glenn, I actually put it up just to respond to that. I've also had the worry of being on work travel in weird places and have to put things on the door of my hotel room that let all of the creeps in the hotel know what city I live in, and then I'm on a public committee and therefore find out more about me. So this rule is the traditional Brown Act rule, and I don't think there's anything that our Brisbane legal is going to be able to do to fix it. The safety issues that especially women alone feel, but this is one of the things that when we figure out who to start writing letters to about how broken this is, that we should all include our personal concerns on that one.
Yeah,
That's right.
Mary?
I mean, all these rules, this is going to push volunteers away. There's no doubt. I mean, my head's spinning. I'm like, okay, when do I have to send you an email that I'm having an emergency, or when will I not be able to make it? I just don't think it's going to work. Who wants to track all of this anyway, right? Right. It just doesn't. I mean, that's going to take a lot of staff time, because I'm assuming staff will have to track all of this. And then what happens if you're out more than 2 times? Are you going to get kicked off? I mean, for God's sake, we're volunteers. So it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work.
It's not.
I'm gonna step in. I mean, it's a law and we have to comply with it. So staff may or may not want to, but we have to comply with this law. We're not going to ignore it. Especially when it's been explained in such great detail at a public meeting right now. This is how we functioned before and everyone attended in person, but it does bring up the question, what if someone just is simply absent?
I think that's what we should remind people. People were absent pre-COVID, so it's also another option if people don't attend. But like I said, there are, I'm not sure what the bylaws say about like your attendance. I know it's looked at when you get kind of, if you want to get
reapply or-
reappointed and reapply for your vacancy, it is one of the factors that gets looked at by the council members.
I did look today to check what that official policy is, and it should not be more than missing more than 2 consecutive meetings or more than 20% of meetings in any 12-month period, which would basically be more than 2.4 meetings.
20%.
Does that include the subcommittees as well?
No, that would just apply for OSEC as a body. I assume probably similar to what Ingrid was referring to with the just cause is 2 per body. That may apply to subcommittees in a similar way. If you're consistently missing a subcommittee meeting, that would be a problem, but I think less so than the attendance at the full meetings.
Thank you for checking that. So 20, you're saying 20% of the meetings or
Yes.
20% of the total meetings?
Yeah, it says something about being absent for more than 60 consecutive days, or if the body doesn't meet monthly, missing more than 2 consecutive meetings.
I see.
I'm going to jump in on you, Michelle, really quick and propose that all of us do as many subcommittee meetings as we can in February.
So I had 2 questions. One is, can we agendize changing the bylaws to have a little bit more leeway on that so that we don't lose valuable members due to unforeseen circumstances? I don't know if that's a possibility or not. And so I'll leave, I don't need an answer now. I'll leave that to you to find out before we agendize that. And then the other thing is up at the very beginning of this document, it talks about the Brown Act and it mentions legislative bodies. And when I joined Open Space and Ecology, I think it's above that even, or maybe it was on the first page, I don't know. But I've read the Brown Act numerous times. I knew what it was by the time I was in 2nd grade. And when I first joined OSEC, the Open Space and Ecology Committee was not there, really subject to the Brown Act because we were not a legislative body. We were only a committee and an advisory committee. We did not make any legislative votes. And so I'm curious about the answer on this FAQ because we agreed to follow the Brown Act rules as at one point as a courtesy so that we're all unified in the city of Brisbane, that we would follow what the commissions do. But we're a committee, not a commission, just like the Safe Streets is a committee, not a commission. And as such, it was my understanding that we were not legally subject to the rules of the Brown Act. I want to know if that's changed, because here it says the requirement of the Brown Act applies to legislative bodies of local governmental agencies. We are technically not a legislative body, but then they're going on to say the term legislative body is defined
That's
to
right.
include the governing body of a local agency, such as the city council, any commission, committee, board, or other body of local agency, whether permanent or temporary, etc., that is created by formal action of a legislative body. This includes standing subcommittee meetings, but not ad hoc subcommittee. Has this been a change in the Brown Act, actually,
This is
in the law?
Yeah, this is the actual definition currently for the Brown Act, what a legislative body means. So
Okay,
it's
and this is in the Brown Act, not in the Emergency Communications SB 2499.
right.
So comment, Michelle, are you talking about when OSEC formed or when you joined?
When I joined. I read the Brown
Right,
Act
well-
before I signed on the dotted line to join. Yes. And we were not subject at that time to the Brown Act. And so that was
I
sort of
don't-
what,
I-
11 or 12 years ago.
I wasn't staffing when you joined, but when the committee formed, there were council members and planning commissioners on it. That's why it wasn't it wasn't like an ad hoc subcommittee developing the open space plan originally. And then it morphed into a committee and has bylaws. And Ingrid can add on to that, but I don't think there's any way around
Okay.
this law
just
relative
wanted-
to this committee.
I wanted clarity that this was what the law now says, the state of California, and this was not just an interpretation by our legal staff.
No, that's
On your
the correct-
first, sorry, go ahead, Ingrid. Let's finish this one.
This is the current definition of the Brown Act,
Okay.
On your
Section
first,
with this section. Section
Your-
54952.
54952. Okay.
on your first point about changing the absences, that might be a good topic to talk to the liaisons about.
Because I would hate to lose a member because of this. Now, if someone just doesn't want to show up to meetings, or they don't remember that we're having a meeting or whatever, is one thing. But when you have truly dedicated people who want to be there and cannot because of work, and work travel, which is sometimes required, that makes it really challenging, especially when they've been very participatory. That's
And
all.
they could attend virtually. Yeah.
And could attend virtually, yeah.
So 2 things on this point. First, this is not actually in the bylaws. It is actually in a commissions and committee procedures or something like that document. So I think that policy as it is written applies to any of the committees or commissions. So, still something we could discuss as far as absences, but something to consider. And I don't actually have it in front of me right now, but I believe it does make a distinction as unexcused absences versus excused absences. So we may be able to, consider those in different ways if people have reasonable, reasons for not being present at a certain number of times versus just not showing up.
That would be good. And when you do show up telecommunication wise, that's showing up. It's
Yes,
not
I would
an
think so.
absence. Yeah. But it'd be good to get that clarified so that Aaron and others can relax about having to travel and not feel they're going to be kicked to the curb for doing their job.
Another comment for Ingrid, it sounds like some of these committees and commissions are going to have to track this, so might be
Yep,
nice to
we're
have
going
like
to be working
a
on it.
spreadsheet.
Yep, we're going to be
format,
working
yeah.
on an attendance spreadsheet to distribute to staff.
I used to have a Google spreadsheet version. I may still have it.
Yeah, I'm looking for templates, so if you want to forward that my way, that'd be great.
I'll check for that.
Shall we move on?
There's one thing that I don't know if it came up very specifically, but I was thinking about earlier in terms of the kind of timelines of notification. If you are going to be teleconferencing, that does need to be mentioned on our agenda, which means staff needs to be notified of that essentially a week before or at least by the Thursday
Posting
before,
of,
because we generally post the agenda the Friday morning before our meeting.
What if that's not possible?
then that provision can't be used.
I think that's when you might use the emergency provision.
Mm, okay.
For the just cause provision.
And one more thing is subcommittees, I think we have always tried to schedule them around when people can attend. So we'll still try to accommodate the times that work for people so that, you know, I mean, maybe there's going to be short-term notice of travel, but we're not going to, you know, we're not going to schedule them when we know that people can't attend.
Well, it is going to be a burden on staff because, you know, I work full time and it's hard to, when I can just log on during a lunch period, that's one thing. But when I have to actually travel to City Hall and come back and do that, makes it much more challenging.
Well, I think it's important to remember that ad hoc committees are not subject to these provisions, and the majority of our committees are in fact ad hoc.
Thank
So we
goodness.
have a couple standing committees, but most of our other committees are ad hoc. So we would be able to, as far as I'm understanding, continue with virtual meetings at whatever time works best for folks for those ad hoc committees.
Could
Good.
staff provide, sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Could staff provide a definition or distinction between standing committees and ad hoc committees?
It's on the list.
We have
You
them
have a
designated
list?
on the list. I would probably let Ingrid describe. Well, maybe I can try. So ad hoc is essentially a group working on a project that is specific, defined, and temporary in nature, or if I'm using the right kind of phrases, something that's a discrete project that will come to an end versus something that's an ongoing responsibility. So I think our standing committees are like education and outreach and events,
Climate action.
climate action plan. That might be it. That are standing.
This might be something worthwhile to put in that FAQ number 1. Just
I think it is in there. It
no,
says
the,
this.
the definitions.
The
So that we
definitions, yeah.
Oh,
We don't decide something's standing when it could be ad hoc or vice versa.
when we make a committee, we discuss that usually and make that determination at that point.
Do you guys determine your ad hoc subcommittees at the beginning of the year? Or as they are needed?
We hadn't
they're
made that
needed.
distinction until might have been just like last year or something. So
Yeah, I remember
just
that.
did that for the first time. Then we do have on our agenda today to discuss subcommittee reorganization. So
Oh, okay, perfect.
you know, as we're talking about who is on what subcommittee, we can probably also evaluate whether we've designated them appropriately.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a good time to do that today.
Should we go on? We've been an hour.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Ingrid.
Thank
Yes,
you, Ingrid.
Thank you. It's nice
Ingrid.
to connect again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, give me just a second to get back to the slides. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Okay, I think I will probably need to introduce this one. So I will ask Dark Skies subcommittee members to chime in. But essentially, the question that we were asked to bring to the full OSEC was determination of whether, as a body, OSEC wanted to pursue Dark Skies certification. So there's a kind of question here about what, what the body wants to recommend to City Council and what staff would recommend. And so as far as the staff perspective, essentially, these statements are representing both myself and Rachel's perspective as the OSEC staff, but also the planning staff. There's certain aspects of certification that are very challenging in the staff's opinion, in terms of the scope of inventory requirements and the processing time, complexity that's added to certain projects that would have to do inventories for on-site lighting that are really not related to the projects, that we don't currently have adequate staff resources for plan check requirements, inspections, code enforcement, and also some non-ordinance requirements, such as having a dark sky monitoring program and doing numerous dark sky events. There's also some questions for us about whether exemptions for Brisbane stars would even meet the letter of the law for certification. So if including that exemption would automatically discount us, even if we did have all of the other requirements of certification met. So staff's recommendation would be to forego certification and to pursue an ordinance that is customized and meets the majority of those dark sky certification requirements, but allows us to be a little bit more flexible and meet our local needs. So I'll go ahead and pause there and let subcommittee members chime in.
Anybody?
Oh, I'm happy to start if everybody's good with that. So I think some of the things we're getting blowback from staff on, I don't quite understand. Like, I just don't think it's doing 2 educational days per year is really that difficult. I mean, we have resources like the Brisbane Star, and we could do it at one at the day in the park. There are some of the other requirements that are going to be significantly challenging. But the city just signed a lease on a whole nother building with the idea that they're going to be scaling up services in preparation for the Baylands. So I kind of feel like if the resources aren't there today, okay, I hear you. But I think they're going to hopefully be there tomorrow. Maybe not, but it's everything's a trade-off, right? And then my final thought around that is that I think the subcommittee's inclination is to see if we can go ahead and write something that is dark skies compliant, as close as possible. And if we have to pull back on one little thing, okay, but that leaves us in a good position in the future with like a really solid program where the possibility of future compliance is in reach. Would any of my other subcommittee members like to add to that? I mean, that's kind of like the highest level thing, but there's a lot to unpack here.
I can, unless Michelle wants to jump in.
No, you go ahead, Erin.
Wow, this is wild, Michelle. Usually you're ready. So I think I actually think what Barbara just said is probably the most important part. Our inclination is definitely to write this as close as possible to compliant. The squishy part is how, if the goal was to write it dark skies compliant, things would be different than if the goal is to write it as close as possible to dark skies compliant. And then there's also the option of, we don't care, we want something fast, which I feel like is also a goal that people keep talking about. And so there's actually this is not a black or white question. There's a bunch of input I feel like we need in order to really get where we're going. And I hear a lot of different push. And so I think it'd be valuable to hear what everyone's thoughts are on this from the full OSEC committee, and honestly also from council. Though I don't think we could do that easily without violating the Brown Act, unless maybe we go to their office hours. But yeah, that's it.
So before Glenn goes, I will note that we do have our council liaisons coming to our February meeting. I think that would probably be the only opportunity really to get council input, would be to have liaison input. I think we probably don't have opportunity aside from bringing a recommendation forward to council or getting input from all of the council members. Go ahead, Glenn.
Just sign me up for simple and fast, because I really doubt, even if the city is going to add more staff, enforcing an ordinance against violators is going to be quite difficult, because a lot of it's going to have to be done at night. I know that I see bright lights around town, but I don't really know even where a lot of them are coming from. And to my mind, the value of a dark skies ordinance, the main value that we will realize from it, is to put people on notice that there are requirements. I'm thinking prevention is going to be more effective than cure. And it's taken a really long time for us to have an ordinance to send to the council. And I think we're way past dark skies compliant right now. So I would just like something that would prevent people or discourage them from putting in any more of these damn lights. I'm done.
Harry?
Nobody said anything about the stars. How do people feel about that?
Well, I mean, the dark skies does have an opening for low wattage lighting. So I suppose it seems to me like stars are probably exempt, at least up to a point. I mean, I think that really huge star that we all love on the mountain might not fall under the low wattage exemption, but that's something we would I think we need to decide which direction we're heading before whether or not we hash out that question or not.
Harry, did you have something to
Yeah,
add?
just a comment. So what I'm hearing, I'm not on the subcommittee, but what I'm hearing is it sounds like the certification is fast, right? We can get that. Is that correct? No?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. So it would be option number 2, right? So we would focus, but how quickly can we do this and get it in place?
Oh, I think I can shed some light here. Mary, the ordinance that we write, we're trying to decide if we want it to be dark skies compliant or not. And if it is thoroughly dark skies compliant, it's going to create a lot of work for staff, and it
Oh, so it requires certification. Got it.
requires certification.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out if we want to write an ordinance that we think would get certification. And
Okay.
It's a lot. It's
Okay.
really a lot.
Got it. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm done. Thank you.
I think as far as how long it would take, I mean, obviously there's still some process to go through, but I think if a decision was made that we are okay with having something strong and local, but not necessarily certificationable, then I think the draft ordinance that we have ready at this point would probably be ready to move forward
Oh, wow.
within
Okay.
another, maybe couple of subcommittee meetings or so. We have the ordinance drafted, and we have several places in the ordinance where it's this language or this language. So making a decision about seeking certification would allow us to kind of make those decisions on those particular points. And I would think probably be able to move forward relatively quickly, of course,
Great, great.
notwithstanding
That sounds,
the
yeah.
ability to schedule subcommittee meetings and
Yeah.
get things on the council agenda and all of that. But yeah, Shauna.
Can there be something in the ordinance that specifies that, at a later date, we want to move forward toward, we want to work towards a certification standard? That is maybe an ultimate goal, but this is what ordinances are updated from time to time. I'm a little fuzzy on that technical part, but I was just curious whether that we could include any message or language in the ordinance to that nature.
I think it could probably be done. It might not be the cleanest way to do it, but we could certainly come back and amend an ordinance that is done. So we could write it as, first step, and then try to ratchet up as we get, additional resources or, see how things are working, et cetera.
Cool, thank you.
We had discussed that in our subcommittee meeting, and it was determined that it probably would never happen. So that if we accepted a non certification ordinance, that we probably never would move forward with revising the ordinance. I think that was what you had indicated when we discussed it, wasn't it, Adrian?
I don't think I said that.
I do remember that was said in our subcommittee meeting. So I've been on the fence about this because a part of me is disappointed. We've worked really long, and especially Barbara's worked really long and getting it to a point to be dark skies certified. But the reality is I'm concerned that it'll continue to not happen if we go for that. Or we go for that, we do all the work, and then the council doesn't approve it because they get blowback from staff that the staff would not be able to enforce it, or that it would be too much work and we don't have the budget for it. So I really am on the fence about it. And in our last 2 subcommittee meetings, I had asked for council feedback before we what are we doing? What do you want? What's the council want? What are they willing to approve? And that hasn't happened yet. So
maybe we just have to wait one more month. I don't know.
I've had individual conversations about it. And, I've waited a really, really long time to have a dark skies ordinance. It's one of the reasons I joined OSEC. So I'm a little bit frustrated. And so for me, I'll go however the bulk of the committee wants to go. But I would love to have a dark skies certifiable ordinance, but I also want it now. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I've been for a while.
So I will say I see basically 2 paths forward. One is if the majority of the committee here tonight agreed that seeking certification was acceptable to the committee and that was your recommendation, then I think we would move forward with that, and the subcommittee could proceed with our work with the planning staff and get that ordinance ready to bring forward for OSEC, full OSEC consideration, and then moving on to council. If this group is not ready at this point in time to say we can make that decision we would have that conversation with the OSEC liaisons. If this group all agrees that we'd rather move fast and have something local and not have, not seek certification, then I don't know that that would be, something that needed to be discussed with the liaisons.
I still think it needs to be discussed with the liaisons, regardless of what decision we make tonight.
I agree. But I don't think that it would necessarily stop us from having a subcommittee meeting in February to work on it.
Right. And getting a pulse of what the committee wants.
Yep.
So I have a question. Are there any perks to get certified? Like, would we qualify for grants as opposed to focusing on local, like the localized ordinance? So being certified, does that open up any funding doors for the city of Brisbane?
I am not aware of any. I don't know. Rachel has probably spent more time looking into the details of certification and all that it entails. So I don't know, Rachel, if you've come across any other benefits of being certified besides for kind of getting that stamp of approval.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's mostly a stamp of approval. Then Brisbane would appear on, would be able to use the International Dark Sky Association logo. They would appear on the International Dark Sky website. Also, one of the requirements for dark sky certified communities is that, like Barbara mentioned earlier, you hold education events twice annually, and that you also implement a dark sky monitoring program. So there are sort of ongoing activities that would come as a result of being dark sky certified.
Activities that we could do anyway.
Yeah.
Instead of being required to, it would be at our will.
Yeah,
So do we want
I guess that's true. It could be it could absolutely be a voluntary activity, no matter what level of dark sky ordinance we pass.
So do we want to take a straw poll amongst the committee members of which way they want to go?
I want to say one more thing. I think the main benefits of being, yes, there's that little, like, it's supposed to, like, it's supposed to be, it's a feather in your hat, right? The certification. I think that for me, the main reason doing it is the science, because this is the program that has been born out of the science. Like, this is what best practices are for protecting our environment, our species, our health. And anytime you start chopping away from that, you're chopping away from what should be happening, right? So there's a reason to be dark sky certified besides the badge of honor, and that is that it's science-based.
But wouldn't we still uphold those things in the ordinance we do submit?
Well, I don't understand why we would be submitting something. I mean, how do I want to say this? I think if we write a dark skies ordinance that is certifiable, we should try to be certified. And if we don't, then maybe we don't. And if they find us lacking one place, maybe we don't have to cry about it. But yes, I guess I'm just not understanding where the edge case you're talking about is coming from, Michelle.
What I'm saying is that I'm not really sure I understand why. I mean, how close, what's
Mhm.
Adrian needs to explain to me, or the staff needs to explain to me, like, if we come all the way up to here and then we're just missing this much, but if we're way still out here, then I'm not happy with it. But my understanding was we would ride all the way up to as far as we
Mhm.
could.
Uh-huh.
And that there was just a few, very few things that would keep us from being certified, and but that would put the staff over the edge.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I think,
Is
like
that
I
the
said earlier, this really isn't a black and white thing. It's a gray thing. Like, we need to figure out whether the goal is to be fast or is be certified or be as close as possible to certification. It's unfortunate, but I think we need help from the bigger committee here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Glenn, I wrote your opinion down. Got it.
I'd like to be as close to certification as possible, but the actual certification isn't for me the goal. The actual goal for me is to have the best dark skies ordinance that we can possibly achieve within the parameters we're working with.
Word.
So thinking about, you know, the Baylands, would it benefit Brisbane to be certified? Right?
How do you mean?
I mean, to have that certification. So the developer can't do any crazy lighting out there on the Baylands.
So the ordinance would achieve
The
that.
ordinance would kick in.
Mhm. I mean, I think whatever ordinance we write, the Baylands will have to comply with it.
All right.
And so will all other new development.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments?
So I'm not hearing a consensus, or at least not hearing that we don't need to go ahead and have this on the agenda for discussion with the council liaisons. Is that right?
I think that we should have it on a discussion with the council liaisons, and I think that we should get as close to a certifiable ordinance as we can. I don't think being certified is the goal. I think getting the best ordinance we can is the goal.
I agree. I think there are some nuances about Brisbane, the stars, etc., that I think getting certified would be very hard, but I'd like to get close with our ordinance.
Mhm.
And I think that little bit of freedom of saying we don't need certification is going to help this move fast, but I don't feel like we need to reduce restrictions just because we're going fast and we're not going for certified.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Me too. Me too.
So is that clear, or do we need a motion?
I don't know if we need a motion.
If we need a motion, I'd rather do it after we talk to the liaison.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should talk to the liaison and tell them, you know, our collective thoughts, that where we're at with this, and that we want to get us the best ordinance we can, which would be as close to certification as we could achieve without pushing it over the edge in terms of what the city can do staffing wise.
So one other question, and I'm sorry if it's silly, but how close are we to, how is our ordinance looking? And how close is it to certification language, right?
There's
I
a
would
couple
like
of
to say
things that
that-
came up. Sorry.
Go
There's
ahead.
there's a couple of things that have come up more recently in the new dark skies ordinances. So there's a couple of things we have to add in. I
Okay.
think the bigger but I think they're minor. I think they're very handleable. I think the bigger issue that we're going to have to work through is some of the things that are already in there in terms of just, you know, bureaucratic stuff. Like, you know, monitoring and inventories and things that staff feels like is, I think we're going to have hardest time is going to be with staff, and just But I'm totally, now that I hear their concerns, I'm totally think we can sit down and work through those things. I don't think the programs have to be huge and scary in order to meet the letter of the dark skies ordinance, certification. And we're not even doing that. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
So, Adrian, do you have clear direction on where we want to be and what we
think so.
want to do? Okay, good. Thank you for your patience with this and your clarity.
Right. It sounds like we are ready to move on to our work plan discussion. And after our last conversation about this, we had discussed reworking things to create these kind of new buckets of priority projects, routine and ongoing efforts, and then long-term policy issues that would, really only become a significant part of our work for the year if a certain action is triggered. So that's what I've gone ahead and done. And you can see here, I think all of the bullet points should be very familiar from the version that you saw at our last meeting. So hopefully this is more in line with what folks were looking for, and I think really provides a lot more kind of clarity on what our focus and our real action in the year would be on. Shauna, am I missing Shauna and Barbara? I'm not seeing you anymore. Do you just have your videos off?
Yeah, sorry. I had to turn that off for a second. My question is, since now there's the difference between the ad hoc and the standing, can we delineate that a little bit better on this work plan as to which ones are ad hoc and which ones are standing committees?
I think I would recommend we just keep that out of the work plan and address that in our subcommittee roster. I don't
I'm
think
good with
we need
that.
to include that level of detail on the work plan.
Okay.
One of the things that, oh, sorry, Erin, you had your hand up.
No, actually, I put it up after you started talking. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. One of the things I'm not seeing on here that I would like, that I think perhaps needs to be on here, and it's something for discussion with the council liaisons, is input on the quarry project.
Yeah.
Because it definitely involves open space and ecology. So it's not currently on our work plan, but I know that they came back with a specific plan and had an opened up the addendum on the EIR for the notice of preparation, which I think the deadline for that's passed already. It's just kind of not good that they did it during December when everybody's very distracted. But I feel that the Open Space and Ecology Committee should have some input on that, just like they have had on the Baylands, where we spent almost a year going over the draft EIR for the Baylands and giving feedback.
Karen, can you remind me what the next steps were as far as the quarry, or perhaps remind all of us? I think we had talked about this, but we need council to request input from OSEC. Is that right? Because it's not generally under their purview. A planning application is under the Planning Commission's purview.
Yeah, so I think we'd add this as maybe requested items or something like that. I mean, if you guys remember, it's pretty free-flowing discussion structured around this draft work plan, so there's certainly room to bring it up, but it doesn't hurt to have it on the list, and they get it ahead of time and they know that it's going to be asked.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to put it on there without asking about it.
Okay, is that a ask the liaison next month, or is that a ask the council at their next meeting, or when you can get it on their agenda?
I think, wouldn't the first step be to talk to the liaisons, or would it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of subcommittees or liaisons is that you can have, again, a more free-flowing discussion, and you're looking for, they're the ones most connected to the committee, so then you get their support, and they then, when it comes to the full council, say, hey, we looked at this makes a lot of sense, we want to, we want to support this, whatever the item is. And
Yeah,
the
'cause-
others that are less involved may defer to their recommendation,
Yeah, because as the plan currently stands, it will have extreme environmental impacts to Brisbane.
And since we have the liaisons coming, it kind of makes sense to do it then.
This-
So I was going to just say, I think this looks great, and I still like that we prioritized it. It makes it seem much more manageable for some reason. And
Yeah.
Adrian for doing that.
No problem. So I don't know if we want to, I'll add the, I think Karen, you called it requested items section for input on quarry project for the council liaison discussion. And this will be our first agenda item probably with the liaisons. Do we need to vote on the draft, or do we just go ahead and take forward too?
I
I don't think so.
prefer, if it's not going to mess anything up, I'd prefer to not vote on it, because I didn't have an opportunity to compare this to some of our old work plans. Because in the past, we've had problems where things kind of just fell off the work plan in the transcription process when it got rewritten. And I wanted an opportunity to double check and make sure that hasn't happened this time. And I haven't been able to do that. If it's going to cause problems, if we have to have it, if we have to vote on it so that it can go forward to the next meeting with our liaisons, then I'm fine going ahead and doing that, but then we'll need to come back to it, I think.
I don't think we need to vote on it. Do we? We didn't. Looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I don't know that we have been, told that we need to have a kind of vote. What is your screen showing, Barbara? Maybe you should turn video off. Like a view of your floor or something there.
See, I'm
Unusual
trying to,
there.
I'm trying to get my settings to I'm just having problems with my settings. I don't know. Menu items have disappeared, so I'll turn it off.
Well, that's better to see your picture.
So I think this is good to move forward with, and I don't notice anything missing. Does anyone else notice anything missing that was on there before?
Glenn?
Do we have anything further to do on the disposable foodware ordinance? Anything like that?
The disposable foodware ordinance is in place and technically started being enforced in October.
Right.
County is taking the lead on outreach and education and enforcement. So
Okay.
there's really not anything.
Okay.
Mary?
Just assuming that the acres falls under the open space plan implementation.
I think so, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, I think let's go ahead and move on.
I do not have staff updates. I know you're going to cover the couple things that I might have talked about.
Just a second. I gotta pull mine up. I don't have two screens here is the other thing. That's
You want Rachel? Does Rachel have one?
no, I've got them. I pulled them up on my phone before we started, so I just had to get my phone to wake back up. We had a weed management area meeting a week or so ago. It was actually my first time attending. Bob used to attend those for us, and it took a little while for me to be able to actually get the time on my calendar, but finally attended. So I took a couple of notes that I thought were interesting. We approved a new strategic plan for the weed management area that's for 2023 to 27. It was really interesting. The presentation was actually provided by Cleo, the biologist from the RCD that the folks on the frog subcommittee met. I asked her about getting a presentation for this committee, and since we're going to be working with them on the frog work, she thought we might be able to work that in. They were also reassigning their steering committee. They do have a role for urban organization or urban advocacy. I forget how it was stated, but Bob had filled that role back when he was on the committee. And the city of South San Francisco has since joined the WMA. So they are going to take a turn on the steering committee at this point for this year.
Will that be Candace?
Yes.
Well, oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, it was Candace. I was not going to remember her name, but I'm glad you knew it. And then the one other thing that I thought was really interesting, they had applied for grant funding for a burn box to be located in the county. And they didn't get the funding, but there was a conversation with somebody from State Parks that they use one, and they recently acquired it and expect to be able to be used for other agencies' properties in the future once they kind of figure out the logistics. It may be used in Burley Murray Park down in Half Moon Bay relatively soon. And if so, they may be inviting WMA members or potentially others to see it in action. So that was a kind of cool thing, what they're going to be able to do with invasives that are removed. You probably saw this in the blast last week, but I wanted to also provide an EV charging update. Construction at City Hall is underway now. We started on Monday morning for the installation of 10 level 2 chargers here. 7 of them will be for the public, and 3 of them are for the police department's future fleet needs. After they are almost complete here, they'll move up to Mission Blue. So that work should start on February 3rd, as long as there aren't any significant delays here, and then move on to Bayshore Park and Ride. The Bayshore location project won't be completed until we can complete the PG&E service upgrade, but they will get it, 90% of the way in the next month or 2.
Where will the ones at City Hall be located?
So basically the row of parking in the public administrative lot, the row of parking closer to the building towards the dog park end. So there'll be 7 there, and one of them is designated as ADA. So that's the good news. That project has been in the works for, 3 years or something, I think. So I'm glad they finally broke ground. The bad news is that the Brisbane Village fast charger is out of service until we can find until we're able to basically coordinate and fund a replacement. That unit is one of the first generation ChargePoint fast charging models, and they are end of life. That model is reaching its end of life in March, which means they would no longer provide hardware or software updates. So we are going to just look for options to try to get it replaced. And unfortunately, so far, all of the grants that are out there only fund new chargers. So I've already had some conversations with some folks at PCE who reached out to me to ask about it when they saw our news in the blast and said, you know, if you guys are looking at new EV funding programs in the future, hopefully you can consider carving out for replacements, because there's a growing problem of defunct EV chargers out there that nobody wants to fund a replacement for, but everybody wants to fund new ones. And then oh, go ahead.
I'm just having a WTF moment. Like, that thing isn't that old.
Like 5 years at
Is
least,
it?
right?
Less than 5.
Oh, less than 5.
It was opened on, we did the ribbon cutting on February 14th, on Valentine's Day of 2018. It was one of the first things I did with the city.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna quietly chew
I
on
know.
that one for a minute.
Glenn?
So I take it we can look elsewhere other than ChargePoint, because it seemed like you're really having trouble getting any responses from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
try to.
there's no reason that it needs to remain a charge point station.
Good.
So Adrian, what if we made it not a charging station anymore, waited 2 months, and then applied for an application for a new charging station in that spot?
I'm not sure.
Because right
you-
now
You've
it's
already
just
got
a
the
parking
electrical.
spot. Huh?
You've got all the electrical wired up to the unit. you know.
Yeah, which means we already have electrical. That should be easy.
Well, that should make it an easy project, yes, but
Yeah,
making the
because right
case
now
to a
it's-
funder that it's a new project might be difficult. Also, it would require us having somebody come and remove the existing one, which would be a
I'll
cost.
run over it with my car.
right now it's
I
basically a
would not
brick.
advise that.
It's basically a brick. It can't even be used as a parking place.
Trust me, I tried to make this argument to one of the funders. I said, well, right now, effectively, we have a 0 kilowatt station. How about that? And it didn't work.
Well, maybe if we uninstall that.
I am
Oh,
looking
well.
into options.
Okay, be creative. I know you are.
Oops. All right, I think my last update, or the last thing I had put on my list anyway, was that you may recall that we've done a few city facility heat pump water heaters through the Energy Watch program. And that program is continuing. They just, I think, renewed it. So they reached out to us to ask if we had any new locations. We did a couple site visits today, and it looks very likely that we'll be able to move forward with the Mission Blue Center very soon
Yay.
with a free one. Knock on
Oh,
wood, I hope I'm not jinxing that before they send me the paperwork, but hot off the press.
Is it already installed at the pool?
No.
Oh,
No, we did look at the pool water heater that serves the showers as another potential one that we looked at today. And they need to do a little work to see if that will meet their program requirements and will be something we'll be able to move forward with. But that was the other site that we looked at.
because it takes a long time for a couple of those showers to heat up and wastes a lot of water doing it.
Well, I don't know that this will necessarily change that. That's really a function of how far the water heater is from the, how much water is in the line, how long the line is from the
Oh,
water
okay.
heater to the shower. And
Ugh.
if water is sitting in that line for a while and getting cold and then you turn it on.
Or you need one of those recirculators.
Okay.
That was all I had. Rachel, I was going to let you talk about building efficiency program updates.
Sure. So we are now in the 2023 calendar year. And this year there are new requirements scheduled for commercial buildings. This will be the start of their 5-year performance standard cycle, where previously all that buildings were required to do was submit a report about how much energy and how much water they're using. And this will be the first time that, in addition to that report, they will also have to show that their building is high performing, or contract with an auditor to do a comprehensive audit of all of their building systems, and then make a plan for what they're going to retrofit or improve. So we're in the planning stages for that. And then that first deadline for this batch of commercial buildings will be coming up in May. Yeah, Glenn?
Do you have any idea from the past documentation that building owners have submitted, how many of them are way out of compliance with efficiency requirements and will have to do some major upgrades? I was just wondering if you have any feeling about that.
Sure. So for this first batch, it'll be about 30 of the 100 buildings on the roster. And then of those 30, I think, again, it's about a third of them that we think will meet sort of the high performance standards. For the other 20, we either know they were not performing as of their last report, or we don't have enough information because their building type doesn't qualify for an Energy Star score. So we will have to do some sort of individualized assessment of whether they meet the performance standard or not. And then also in terms of the building improvements that they'll have to do, we have a list that's pre-approved of what measures they will be allowed to take to show that they're making improvements to their building. It doesn't necessarily, and it's expected that they make that decision based off of their audit. So it will most likely be whatever their auditor is recommending for them as here's what's going to save you the most money.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And I will just add that if their auditor recommends something that is not on our list, they can reach out to us to ask if we would approve that as a measure for them, which, assuming it's a viable energy reducing measure, I think we would generally approve.
Mm-hmm. Right. So for buildings that aren't able to use the Energy Star thing, you mentioned, Rachel, that there would be some other way to assess their performance. Do we have any idea what that is?
Yeah, so it's we have another measure which is called energy use intensity, and that's basically energy use divided by square footage. So, and they will have indicated elsewhere in their report, here's what our building type is, and we can make some sort of rough comparisons. We also, there's just sort of a general understanding of energy use intensity less than about 50 is pretty low. Energy use intensity of over 200 is pretty high. So we have some like ballpark measures that we can work around.
Thank you.
Erin, did you have a question?
No, it was curiosity. I decided to not waste the time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like we are ready to move on from staff updates. So here is our subcommittee list. And I did ask Jason in advance, since he was not able to be here, about what he wanted to be added to or removed from or whatnot. So I can just start off with that if folks want, and then I can continue, or do we want to go just committee by committee and do updates and then talk about who was on the committee at that time.
However you want.
I will just share Jason's thoughts because then I can just put them out there. And he asked to continue on events, invasive species, and add to the Crocker Trail frog habitat as previously discussed. He also said that if someone else was wanting to be on events, he would step down. And then if anybody had had enough of dark skies and wanted to use his New York pushiness to get something done faster, he'd be happy to do that. But that was only if somebody wanted to be dropped.
I'm almost more inclined to stay on frogs and give him dark skies. I'm kind of like burnt out a little bit, but it's up to, I mean, I don't know. You can tell I'm a little burnt out about it. Just, and I don't know as much as I should know.
It seems to me that Jason really wants to be on frogs. And if you want to stay on frogs, Michelle, I will step down and allow him to be there.
No, Shauna, you're good with frogs.
But I mean, he
All right,
seems to be really passionate about it. And
no,
and-
I'll drop. It's fine. It's fine. He's working a lot with Paula, I think, down there, and I think he's really liking it. So I'm good with where we're at. But I will still be paying attention to what you guys are doing with the frogs.
Okay, so we're gonna add Jason and drop Michelle. Subcommittee.
Given my work travel, I think if anyone else is interested in being in the climate action plan, which is my only standing subcommittee, I think that might not be a horrible thing to switch.
I think we need you on that committee, though.
I think we do.
So I have a possible suggestion here. The Climate Action Plan subcommittee has generally, in recent times at least, only met when we were working on a specific project like REACH codes.
Right.
Do we need to have a standing Climate Action Plan subcommittee at this point? Should we perhaps instead have an ad hoc REACH code subcommittee that can disband when we are done with REACH codes? And if we get to that trigger point of being able to work on a Climate Action Plan subcommittee, then we reconstitute a Climate Action Plan subcommittee.
I think that's a brilliant idea, Adrian.
Yeah, works for me, although we have done some other things like the emergency declaration. Is there any way we could just reconstitute the Climate Action Plan Committee as an ad hoc committee? Subcommittee.
Yeah, let's
I don't think so.
Well,
It might be a
then if
harder
you-
case to make, but
Well-
if we wanted to do other things like that emergency declaration, those could also be their own, ad hoc
Ad
can
hoc.
be as short term as need be. It may be only a couple of meetings for something relatively
Okay.
quick like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, whatever works. And we, the members of the Climate Action Plan Committee, could just volunteer for these new ad hoc committees as they came up.
I'm fine with whatever. I mean, I think we need to kind of move stuff to being ad hoc as much as possible in order to
Yeah,
make it workable for us as
yeah,
human beings.
Well, the particular case about the Climate Action Plan subcommittee is that in terms of developing the next climate action plan, that's been on hold for what, 3 years?
ages. Yeah,
Yeah.
long time. 2 years at least.
So it's not really doing that. It's doing other things. So let's just
Exactly.
call it what it is,
Fine by me.
Sounds good.
So then my
Happy to
proposed
be on this
was
new
that-
ad hoc subcommittee.
for existing building reach codes.
I'm still disappointed that I'm not on the Sierra Point Park Planning Subcommittee. So whenever you're ready to give it up, Barbara, let me know.
Oh, I'm not sure I'm there yet. I'm just getting started. Barely had an opportunity to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just saying.
Okay. I'm always happy to take whatever input you want to give me, though. Prior to
Okay.
anything, just, you know, hit me up with what you want to see happen, and I'm happy to carry that forward.
Okay.
The city clerk tell us that the Bayland subcommittee was standing, but that's not, we don't organize that anyway, so.
Right. And I think because it's got council and other members on it, they would probably.
There haven't been any meetings. They keep canceling. So,
Yeah, I think it's been at least a year. at
oh
this
yeah,
point since
yeah.
they've had a meeting.
Yeah,
Well,
that
maybe
was like
something to
that.
start.
Beautification, I think is what you're
beautification.
thinking, Michelle. It
Yeah.
did I think they did officially disband that one.
Yeah, we were just too beautiful to handle it.
Were there any other subcommittee changes?
No, but I did want to bring up that I had a conversation with Sean Sweeney. He doesn't, oh God, just make me shut up, but he really doesn't think that Doug firs are the right tree either.
What was his recommendation?
He didn't give me one at that moment, but he was the one who originally,
I think, yeah, do-a-deer.
let us-
He originally suggested the do-a-deer, right?
no, he's the one who said the Deodora was going to die.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think that well, anyway, all right. I don't, never mind. Just forget I said anything.
This is why we need to plant 3 different trees, because that's kind of a weird location, and it's just going to be whatever takes is whatever takes.
Yeah, well, you guys are planning right now, they're planning to plant 3 of the same tree.
No.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Orchards learned to do that a long time ago. If you put 3 of the same tree in, then if they have one pest, all 3 trees are gone, right?
Right.
Oh, man. All right.
Guys
Sorry.
wanted it to look like a Christmas tree. So,
Well,
or
I mean,
I'm sorry, a seasonal tree.
yeah, no, we can have, there's more than one tree that looks like a Happy Holidays tree. We should have a little variety. I mean, they can all be conifers, but
I'm perfectly happy with the fake one, at least once they got it staked up properly.
People were not happy with the fake one.
I know, but everybody complains about everything anyways. So it was no matter what we were going to do, they were going to complain about it. So,
well, you know, in
Well-
order to be ecologically sensitive, if you invest in an artificial tree, you're supposed to use it for at least 7 years to balance out the footprint. But there's that. There's that
Well,
nugget that nobody's cared about.
Let's just move right along. Chair and committee
move along.
matters.
We didn't actually do any updates, but I'm not sure if anyone had any updates because I don't think most committees really met over the holidays. So the only one I did want to ask about was the science fair judging. but
Oh,
I think that
yeah.
Probably is more maybe just if you haven't gotten in touch with anyone yet. It's probably.
I have. I got an email from Joe Condon, Barbara, I actually emailed you, but I emailed to your personal address.
Yeah, I got that.
You got it? Okay, good. So
Yeah.
bottom line, the judges' night is February the 13th from 6 to 8 in the evening. And then the science fair night is on the 16th of February from 6 to 8. So Barbara, I'm assuming you're planning on going up to judges' night and we
I got it
continue-
on my calendar, barring disasters.
Yay, yay. So we'll take a look at the projects. I'll go ahead and purchase the frames and so we can put the certificates in there once we figure out who's the top 3.
Yeah, hit up the thrift stores now. You can find some good frames.
Yeah, yeah. I think I bought a whole ton last year, so I think I have some in the closet. So anyway.
To your point, we did have a meeting.
And
I'm sorry, I thought we were just talking about reassign. I didn't realize we were actually doing
subcommittee reports and
yes.
reorganization.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. I spaced on that one. So the consultant presented 3 different plans. I have a very strong personal preference for one of them, but I'm sure whatever ends up happening will end up being a mishmash of all 3, as everybody understands. One thing I brought forward is I just wanted to push them even further for layered usages. Land is so precious, and our so much of our footprint is externalized. I'm always trying to figure out more ways we can, make one piece of land serve 3 and 6 and 10 purposes. So a little bit of conversation happened around that. There was some concerns about the prices for these things. It was too far out for them to have a really strong sense of, how much these things are going to cost, and also how much they're going to cost relative to each other. But they threw out some ballparky numbers there, and I was trying to remember how much money we had in that fund vis-a-vis. I don't remember how much is in that fund and how much has gotten spent on, because some has been spent on other things, and I was like, ooh, we may regret that. Because the price tags were handsome, as they want to be when you're trying to do like a world-class project. But it's going to be coming out to the public soon. It's awesome, exciting. I think it's totally worth engaging. It's really cool. And I think I can probably send my screenshot to Adrian, and if anybody has any feedback they would like me to carry forward to the next meeting, they can do that. But if it's more than 1 or 2 people, then I think we might need to agendize it, just to not accidentally violate the Brown Act. That's just my thoughts.
I believe there is a public input opportunity coming up.
Yes, there is. I just didn't remember how far out it is.
I think it's coming up pretty quickly. So
Okay. Well, then we should just do that.
I think that's probably ideal,
definitely.
is to just have
let's just
folks
do that.
provide their feedback directly that way. I think it might even be before our next meeting. I'll try to look it up, but it'll take me a minute.
Who are the consultants?
Oh gosh, I can't remember their names, but I've been more favorably impressed with them than I've been with many of our consultants. But I can't remember the name.
I sat in on it too. I don't remember the name either, because that was the only meeting that I'd been to. But one of the things that stuck out for me was that they did accommodate sea level rise and move the trail in each of the cases up to higher ground.
Mm-hmm.
The
Good
shoreline part of the trail. Okay, you have hands raised.
Sorry.
Who's
Glenn was first.
So with respect to sea level rise, a new report just came out, I think it was yesterday, and so the scientists have kind of red faces. They're now saying that the initial phases of sea level rise could be about twice as bad as they originally thought. So just, I think, asking questions to see how conservative people are being about their sea level rise projections is even more important than we thought.
I don't know how many of you saw the king tides that happened last weekend, but at least two of the lower parking lots at the marina where people park that own boats were underwater.
Mm.
And so as the lawn was flooded, and we've lost several trees down there now from, I think from salt inundation. So a lot of the mature poplars and other trees are not well.
Yeah.
And there's also, of course, a lot of ground squirrel activity. And that's the #1 cause of cat failure, ground squirrel activity. That's all.
I did find that on the city's website, the meeting or the workshop is coming up very soon. In fact, January 31st, 5 to 7 p.m. here in the community meeting room. The city's consultant is CMG, and they will be presenting 3 concept plans. And there will be an opportunity to provide input online that will go live the week of January 30th to align with the workshop. So you could look for that. I'm sure Caroline will have information going out in the blast and social media. And if you want to find that directly, it's on our city calendar. Shauna?
I have a question, Barbara. Was there any discussion about like rebuilding any of the wetlands around that area, so as to sort of give us some buffering from?
Yeah, all the plans included wetland restoration. I think there was one that was, I'm trying to remember in my little brain here, I've got a picture. I think there was one that was much more focused on wetlands. But yeah, if that's some feedback you want to give them that feedback, because it's definitely on their plate.
Yeah.
And where are they going to restore wetlands?
Around that perimeter where they're moving the Bay Trail in, and some of that stuff. I mean, I think they're expecting to lose some of the coast there, because some of that low-lying land is going to be inundated around the edges.
So are you talking the area between the freeway and the Sierra Point, or are you talking about the riprap areas along the north and south ends of the square?
Yeah, it's definitely the riprap areas.
Wow.
Okay, so they're going to do wetlands in the riprap areas. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my picture right here, and yeah, it looks like the riprap's going to be, it's going to be actually behind the riprap.
Behind the riprap.
The riprap looks like it's going to be submerged.
Oh,
Okay. Can't quite visualize how they're going to do that, but okay.
Can I share my
Okay.
screen? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, give me a second. I think I have to stop sharing first, but I think
Has
we
it been
should-
released to the public actually before you share your screen? I would hate to get us in trouble.
Yeah.
Good point. That meeting is on January 31st.
Right.
It's only
Well,
6 days
then.
away.
It does help to have somebody who works for the government on the federal government committee.
Thanks, Aaron. It's getting late.
Yeah, let's
Yes,
are we ready to wrap it up?
ready.
Anything else on subcommittees? I think it sounded like we were at the end of that item. Yes. Okay, calendar. Big thing on the calendar is planting day on the 4th, assuming the weather sticks with us. We had originally planned to be in Buckeye Canyon, but that is not on the table right now. So we will be up the Northeast Ridge, meeting the end of Checker Spot, I believe, if I'm remembering right. And yeah, should be a lovely time. Come out and join us. Most of the other things on this calendar at this point are pretty tentative, although we did settle on Earth Day this year falls on a Saturday. So we did talk with Ariel about having that event on actual Earth Day. Besides for that, I think everything else is pretty tentative.
Do you have a day in the park?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't go look at the calendar to see what the exact date is, but I'm pretty sure it's always the first Saturday of October. So
First Saturday in October this year is October 7th. There has been one occasion in the past where we had it September 30th. So that's why I was asking.
I'm sorry, I didn't check. I will look into
Okay.
that.
All right. It's because somebody asked me because they're planning the regatta day for the marina.
The planting day information, what time to show up, what to wear, etc. Is that on anything other than Facebook?
It's on the mountain. There's a sign up page on the Mountain Watch
Perfect.
website.
I will go.
The
Thank you.
promo should be going out in the Star, and I can't remember if I saw it in the most recent blast, but Caroline does have it, so I'll make sure that we get it out this week.
I didn't see it in the blast.
I didn't either. I thought it would be there though, so we'll make sure it is in the next one.
Thank you.
That was all I had on the calendar. Any questions, suggestions?
I just double checked the calendar and it will be October 7th for Day in the Park.
For sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah.
Yay, new pictures.
Hey, there's everybody. Chair and member matters. Anybody have anything?
That's cute.
I would like to thank staff who probably had to work really hard through all of the weather that Brisbane just had. I know you guys aren't necessarily supporting Parks and Rec, but I imagine you had to work really hard and the whole city appreciates it.
Yes, I saw you guys out there shoveling.
Gonna have a part in trying to get paid from either FEMA or FHWA for stuff on federal aid routes. So that'll be a lot of, really detailed reporting to try to get paid for the work that happened, and even permanent repairs too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And Kitty and I are really okay. February 22nd.
Yeah.
Next meeting, February 22nd. One more time in this format. Enjoy being in the comfort of your home. I'm jealous. I got a long drive still.
Oh, and the comfort of having your kitty with you.
Our extra members of the committee, huh?
Yeah. He's in his Peaches box, so I can hold him while I'm meeting.
I will miss your cat, Karen.
Yeah, Karen's cat is very noticeable.
I would just like to say, when I'm working at home quietly at my computer, my cat is asleep on the couch. And as soon as I get on a Zoom meeting lately, he is back and forth in front. It's nonsensical.
Yeah, my little office assistant was going back and forth today during a Zoom to where finally my boss slacked me and said, "Can you keep the cat off the Zoom?" I'm like, oh shit.
I know hard to manage them unless you I don't know what.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you all.
Y'all
Have
are
a
very
safe-
lucky I didn't start swearing today when I spilt the raw shrimp all over the floor in front of the dog.
That was a
That's
first.
all.
Good night, everybody.
Nice. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you next
Thank
month.
you.
Right.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.